What was the "please stop" school presentation that you witnessed? For 8th grade talent show, 2 girls sang the Mr. Bladell song. Mr. Bladell was a good-looking, recently college-graduated teacher. That basically was about how cute they thought he was. Even then, it was incredibly uncomfortable, and I remember looking at the teacher's face and he didn't seem very amused. This was my presentation, and it was about the science behind how Mountain Dew can dissolve a mouse. This was in 4th grade. During nursing school, a guy decided to use My Little Pony figures as props to a seminar room of about 100 people. He told the class that he would refer to himself as his pony name for the duration. Don't remember what it was. Also, not that this is relevant, but he wore a black leather trench coat and it was pretty hot in the room, yet he never took it off. Cringe. Edit. He wasn't a student, he came in to do a talk about epilepsy and his experience with healthcare. We got to review them at the end and I gave him a good score because he actually had a lot of interesting things to say about his condition, even if it was cringy. In 1984, when I was in 6th grade, each class did a winter concert. The 8th grade football team sang "I'm Dreaming of a Black Christmas" in blackface. Green Bay, Wisconsin. Bayview Middle School. Edit. It was 1984. Not 1985. This was in college. Our bio finals were to present on any topic that was related to biology. A group was presenting on types of protection for. Not once did they refer to any body parts or fluids by their scientific names. So, yes, they literally had dick, cum, and pussy on slides and read off them. Everyone kept glancing over at our professor, who had this look like he was just constantly cleaning his glasses because he couldn't believe what he was witnessing. They got Kentucky on grading. Compared to some other stories in here, this is minor. But it was a group project for one of my literature classes. There were 5 people in this group. According to the rubric for this assignment, everyone was supposed to have equal speaking parts. One of the members in this group would just not stop talking. Half of their presentation was just her talking, and she went on about each of her slides for like 5 minutes. The rest of her group members had like 1 or 2 slides each. And she had IIRC 5 or 6. She would also interject into the other group members' parts to add her opinions. The look on my professor's face screamed, "Just shut up already," every time she talked. In speech 101 in college, we had to pick a children's book and voice act each character. That was it. That was the entire assignment. Well, one student decided to take it to the next level. He chose a Berenstain Bear book and decided to not only do voice acting for every single one of the characters, but also act it out. It was physically uncomfortable to watch this guy scramble around the room and pretend to be bears and other animals. It was not well done. It was awful. Not at school. But when I was in high school, my church youth group went to this church camp. For those uninitiated, Thursday nights are normally the really emotional nights. Well, this camp was different. Thursday night, the guy that started the camp comes on stage and begins giving a bunch of middle school and high school boys and girls the talk. All I remember from that night was the quote, "Just because there's a hole there doesn't mean you have to stick something in it." A teacher asked us to compare the cells in our body to anything we can think of. Obviously, some students compared the parts of the human cell to schools, jails, libraries. Normal things, right? Well, this one student that sits next to me had a different idea. These were group projects, keep in mind. This girl managed to strong-arm her group to compare the human cell to the infamous webcomic Homestuck. She did this successfully. Not only did I feel dirty, but her group felt worse for having their names on it. This was a Spanish class in college. And I think the assignment was something like, talk about your best friend, or some such. Just kind of a softball assignment so you could practice using the vocabulary. And one classmate's friend was evidently a friend with benefits. An anti-bullying campaign. They spent most of the presentation explaining different types and ways to bully, harass people. Bullying increased in school and everything got 10 times worse now that the students were more educated. I was in 4th grade and a girl in my class did an oral report on Martin Luther King and how he was a hero for freeing the slaves, Sue or 2000. Principal was hyping it up for weeks. Then about 4 days before his arrival it was announced on Friday that he wasn't coming. Fast forward to Monday, during morning announcements it's announced he's changed his mind and is coming to our school tomorrow as planned. Come Tuesday morning everyone is excited. We're all amped to meet the Terminator. A handful of parents even came with VHS copies of his movies. Posters. ECT. We're all going to our gym auditorium. Taking our seats. Principal takes the stage, takes the moment to make some announcements. Award honor roll. Perfect attendance. ECT. Finally she starts hyping up around Schwarzenegger. Everyone is excited and on edge. When she basically says, "Here's Arnie," and it's the vice principal in a leather jacket holding a shotgun, not a toy one either. And spends 30 to 40 minutes trying to hype us up for FCAT, all the while doing the absolute worst impression of Arnold Schwarzenegger I've ever heard. Once we realized Arnold wasn't there, people start shouting, screaming at the principals for lying to us. Along with some of the parents who came to this. I do hope someone has footage of this meltdown of a bunch of K5 kids shouting and screaming at the principals because Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't come to our school. Because I clearly remember 2 to 3 people having camcorders. Edit. Thanks for the gold. Honestly thought this would get buried. And can anyone explain the Office reference? I genuinely hate the show, so I'm not sure why people kept bringing it up. As for some of the questions, Arnold was scheduled but cancelled last minute on not only my school but my cousin's who he was supposed to go to on Wednesday. Instead he only went to one school in my city, which I don't remember which one. Atmosphere. But I'll add it if I remember it. Yes, the principals apologized the next day. And the vice principal changed schools the following school year. I have absolutely no idea why he thought bringing a shotgun was a good idea. But I think he was attempting to look the part. Which, considering his massive gut, really didn't help. Environmental science. For our final project in the class we were allowed to talk about. Dude decides to do his project on global cooling. Buddy was up there for 7 minutes explaining to the class how the Earth has been getting colder and colder. And how it's eventually going to cause problems to other species. Teacher was really passionate about this class and you could say her squirming in her seat the whole way through the presentation. Whole thing was a big WTF. His sources were online forums. My sophomore year we had to make a presentation about any person that made an impact on the world that was inspirational. Someone chose Hitler. It's me. I did this. I cringe about it to this day. Nearly 20 years later. I was 16 and in high school. My high school was going to do a spring talent show. I wanted to be in the talent show and show off my talents. The problem was, my actual talents are not ones that I could show off at a talent show. So I decided to try singing. I have never sung in my life. I have never had voice lessons. I was in my prime weeb stage and chose an anime song to sing. I didn't know any actual Japanese. I had just memorized the lyrics from hearing the song so many times. Luckily I didn't make it past auditions. But several people saw an overweight girl in a Sailor Moon shirt try to sing Butterfly. Despite having never done any singing or voice training ever in her life. Nearly 20 years later. And remembering it keeps me awake at night. In my high school current events class, 2 freshman girls got a little lost in their research about ISIS. They somehow connected this terrorist group to the magic bullet theory used in the assassination of John F. Kennedy. Me and the few other seniors were holding back laughter the entire presentation. Some guy in my class, about 12 to 13 years old, confused heroic and erotic. The teacher asked if he really read an erotic book and he said yes. As the student watched in disbelief. Took the teacher 30 seconds to catch up the misunderstanding. I've told this on Reddit a few times, but it's truly unforgettable. Smart kid in the class was giving a deeply sourced PowerPoint presentation on religion in Europe. He opens up his files. Proceeds to click on his project named. He says, clearly I wasn't really paying any attention when I named my file. He gives the presentation. He stutters and sweats bullets while we watch in utter disbelief. The word is sitting there on the top of the file heading the whole time. This was during a study abroad semester while attending a cultural communication class. He had to rot in his own after that. I was doing work experience with a bunch of special needs kids at a school. We were watching a play that I don't remember the name of, which was about someone who was in a gang or something and got HIV. Instead of having any action or dialogue, the story was told through characters standing out the front and telling the story to the audience. It was dull as hell. The special needs kids were getting so restless. And I couldn't blame them. Because it was terrible. Student gave a presentation on the need to strap laser beams to deer heads that trigger sonic waves so that the deer are detracted from crossing highways. Context. Wasn't the grading teacher, but was asked to observe or supervise the teacher. This was their final assignment for the school year and constituted for a large percentage of their final grade. Theme was supposed to be on how to solve a problem youth is facing X. How to be a solutionary. Student was in 10th grade. We had this senior talent show that a few male students could sign up for, no idea why it was only guys. Or how the few people even got nominated for it. And they all had to do their own act. Some sang. Some danced. Some put on a funny skit. Possibilities were endless. Well, each year someone who never got told they weren't good at singing would end up on stage. One time this guy did the evolution of boy band songs and it was just below average singing for, no joke, 15 minutes straight. Bonus skit that I'm glad didn't stop because it was hilarious. One guy did a wrestling skit with different movie characters and my friend was the announcer. When Indiana Jones got into the ring, my friend announced, "It's the bad boy himself," and somehow that slipped by all the school staff members and made it into the DVDs the school sold. Another friend of mine sang Disney princess songs while wearing a Sonic hat and got second place, and at least 3 girls gave him their number. In history class, we all had to do a presentation about some sort of injustice in the world. One kid chose a prison camp for his topic. All his PowerPoint slides were photos of men being stripped, chained, whipped, sodomized, and forced to give. We were 13. When I was a 9th grade student, we had to present the poems we made in English class. Most people wrote about embracing their culture, loving their friends, etc. And then there was that one kid who recited a lifestyle poem, which compared fat people to beached whales and said that people who don't work out will die before they're 20. Someone in my class did a book report on the dictionary. The teacher was pissed. All of us students thought it was hilarious. Never heard the end of the presentation. Edit. Thank you so much for the gold. I've never had it before. What a treat. Us. We were to make a film retelling the story of Hamlet. It was supposed to be 5 minutes. Being the creative nutcases we were, we made a 22-minute film complete with a commercial break which made fun of prior books we had to read. Ophelia was a Jersey Shore who refused to take her Prozac. Polonius was a perverted Greek philosopher. And Hamlet was a depressed emo. Sword fights were video game based, with Mortal Kombat themes. We presented it to the class and were cut off after 5 minutes. We received an A. When I was in high school, a girl from an absurdly wealthy family gave a presentation on why the rich are just as oppressed as anyone. This was in a normal public school in Kentucky where about 90% of the students were middle class at best. You could feel the eyes rolling in that room. My junior year in French class. This one girl did not know French at all, despite taking the class for 4 years. She was pretty open about it too, laughing and saying how she didn't need this class in the middle of the presentation. The teacher asked her to sit. In middle school there was a school-wide assembly telling kids not to use the bathroom anywhere other than a bathroom. Kids were peeing, pooping in hallways because the handbook never said you had to use a bathroom. Edit. I wasn't a participant in the bathroom behavioral problems. Edit 2. People are confused as to why you would do this. I honestly have no clue. The younger kids would do the dirty work while most older kids did a downgrade of it. It was that super weird trend. Edit 3. Just wanted to say that the school couldn't really do anything other than tell them to stop because, in fact, it wasn't in the handbook. Of course you can't do it in front of an administrator or teacher. But nothing was stopping you. The one where my school got ripped off by paying a guy who claimed to be on SpongeBob to come talk to us about drugs. He did look kind of like Tom Kenny, I guess. I went to school for computer security. In an Introduction to Computer Security course, we had to do a project on social engineering. A student decided that for his project he was going to find a way to gain access to a chosen website. He found a small local business website, identified that the domain was registered to an email address from a local ISP, called the ISP to reset the password. They asked him for his last 4 of his SSN. So he hung up. He found the phone number of the business, so called them and pretended to be from the ISP offering 3 months free if the person did a 5-question survey. They accepted, and answered some BS questions. Then he asked for the last 4 of the guy's SSN. He then called the ISP with the last 4. Got them to reset the password of the email account. He then logged into the email, and used it to get the domain registrar to send a password reset to the email, which he used to reset the password of the domain account and deleted the email. He recorded all phone calls and screenshotted the whole process. As he presented all these, we kept expecting him to say, but that would be illegal. So I didn't do X. But he went all the way. The professor finally stopped him after he said he logged into the domain registrar and told him to destroy everything and never speak of it again. I think the professor was a bit nicer than he could have been. Potentially to the point of accomplice telling him to destroy evidence. It was my sophomore year English class. This kid who was reading his essay in front of the class and started to stumble over some of the words. The teacher recognized the words and found the essay the kid plagiarized and started helping him read it. The kid didn't understand what was happening and just thanked the teacher and kept reading. Not a literal presentation really. But we had an assembly in high school where the students that helped plan homecoming would announce the nominations for homecoming court. It always had a cute little theme and like a short skit involved. Well, at one point the audio they were using as the cue for the skit failed. They just kind of paused for technical difficulties. But this one girl from the planning committee started singing a random Disney song a cappella while improvising a dance to go along with it. I guess as a distraction from them trying to fix the audio? She kept trying to get people to join in with her. But nobody did. And she eventually just kind of trailed off mid-song and started pouting that nobody would sing with her. Then once they got the audio fixed for the skit, she pouted and snapped the way through the rest of her lines. Which made everything even more uncomfortable. The other famous one was when a girl in our class running for student government referenced a hashtag that she was trying to make popular during her campaign speech to the whole school. The hashtag was something catchy about her having a big. There was a genuine collective yikes from the crowd when she said it. I don't think she got elected. Not a presentation, but during our school assemblies we often had student performers, which were usually musically inclined individuals or theater kids doing a scene monologue. One kid decided to do a stand-up comedy routine about a girl giving him a so awkward, and the principal had to interrupt him. In college, someone was doing a presentation on Nelson Mandela and kept referring to Africans as African Americans.